the Capitol Rotunda, where this ceremony is going to take place very shortly now. We also saw Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Indian Foreign Minister, has also arrived for the event. We saw just a while ago Elon Musk was also present, as were the CEOs and founders of other big conglomerates in America, including Mark Zuckerberg, including Sam Altman, including Jeff Bezos. They all are present over there to take part in this mega ceremony. Joining me on the telecast, let me quickly bring in, I have with me Yossi Cooper-Wasser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert. Mr. Yossi, thanks for joining me. And of course, when we talk about Israel, and now that the ceasefire has been reached between Hamas and Israel, how much credit do you think should be given to President Trump for this ceasefire to have been achieved?
Well, President Biden did a long effort in order to pave the road for this ceasefire, and without the contribution of President Trump, it wouldn't have happened. So it's both of them deserve the credit for it, and Trump also is one of those who deserve this credit.
Okay, I'm just going to come back to my guest. I'd just like to tell you now we have Donald Trump Jr., who is entering into the rotunda at the Capitol Rotunda. Along with him are his siblings and his children. Remember, he has 5 children with his wife, and he is the eldest of the children of President Biden. Remember, there is also Ivanka and her children and her husband, who have also arrived yesterday in Washington DC. They were all present with the president and his wife Melania for those fireworks ceremony that were taking place, and Ivanka had been posting a number of those pictures after one of the balls that were being hosted for President Trump, where a number of dignitaries, where businessmen, even Ambanis were present. Mukesh Ambani and his wife Neeta Ambani were also present to be part of that ceremony. Okay, I'm going to get in my other panelists into the discussion. I have with me Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. Thank you very much for joining me. And Ambassador Kapoor, it's a mega day in the history of America. President Trump comes back to power for the second term. What is it that is being anticipated by the Americans? What kind of sentiment is there on the ground?
Well, there is a lot of positive sentiment because after a very long time, it has happened that President has come back to power in a after a gap of 4 years. It's only the second time in the history of America. Secondly, you see that all the important entities are controlled by the Republicans now. The Senate is controlled by the Republicans, the House is controlled by the Republicans, the White House is controlled by the Republicans, the judiciary is controlled by the Republicans, and there is a lot of support the Republicans have in the social media. In the mainstream media, the narrative was quite favorable to the Democrats for a very long time, and that has also shifted very significantly towards Trump's side. The military, for example, the military-industrial complex itself, that also will now have to sort of change its sights and gears to see how they can cope with the Trump presidency, because they were having a free run, with the war continuing in Palestine, Israel, Gaza, in Ukraine, Russia, and Trump wants to put a stop to that. The deep state, which was creating a lot of havoc and chaos, even vis-a-vis the U.S. India relations, funding human rights studies and other such disruptive activities in India through the ambassador of U.S. in India, through the embassy, through the State Department, which is in some ways, some of the people there are quite woke, I must say, because I've been observing the trends that take place. So now you have Marco Rubio, who's going to be heading the State Department, and his views on India are very positive. His views on China are also very clear and not really positive. So there's going to be a lot of significant shifts. The people are looking at it with a lot of anticipation because under the Democrats, with Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate of the Democrats, signing an agreement with the Muslims on equal power sharing, there had been a lot of disappointment in many circles in the U.S. The leftist Marxists were getting a free run. The woke element, disrupting schools on the issue of child sex education, child sex change. There were so many issues which were starting to hit very hard to the common man, including the price rise, the inflation, the gas prices, and there was a feeling that the Democrats have lost their way.
Okay.
So a lot of the Hindus also voted in favor of Trump, particularly in swing states where numbers are very small, and any such segment which votes for one candidate can easily swing the vote towards that candidate. So large numbers of Hindus in the swing states voted for Trump. For the
Okay.
first time, what I saw was the Hindus who would vote in large numbers for Democrats had a shift in perception and a shift in sort of their voting. They would earlier not even go out to vote. This time, seeing the threats, because the breaking US forces had gained a lot of steam, and it impacted the Indians directly, because the Hindu diaspora in the US is the highest diaspora in terms of the income on per capita basis for any ethnic group.
Okay.
It is the highest tax-paying
Yes,
group.
absolutely. So those have been the reasons that Trump was re-elected to power. There have been a percentage which is significant where Indian Americans who had traditionally been voting for the Democrats ended up voting for Trump this time around. Visuals on our screens of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, who have also arrived inside the Capitol building. They are meeting other dignitaries over there. We just a moment ago saw Mike Pence, the former Secretary of State of President Trump in his first term, has also arrived. He is not seen with his wife accompanying him. I'm going to come to Mr. Arvind, Professor Arvind Mahajan. Thank you very much for joining us. And Professor Mahajan, what is it that you anticipate from Trump 2.0?
Well, I mean, domestically, as your earlier speakers have said, I mean, their impact in two dimensions. One is domestically within the United States. And these fundamentally, of course, these things affect the world outside the United States as well. But these have to do with, of course, the economics, the social dimension, and then, of course, the strategic dimension. So in the social dimension, as people have mentioned earlier, there have been issues, concerns about people on the extreme left in terms of transgender, the role of getting education out, unemployment within certain racial groups. And these are things which domestically people have been concerned about. Of course, the most fundamental one has been inflation. And the hope is, in my opinion, President Trump is inheriting a fairly sound economy. The economy has turned around, the inflation has been coming down, and now really it is up to President Trump to fulfill the promises he has made, on basis of which he got a majority of the vote.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Which was his Barack Obama, the former president of America, has also arrived. Conspicuous by her absence is Michelle Obama, who released a statement just 2 days ago that she will not be attending the ceremony. There is George W. Bush, who is also present with his wife in attendance for the ceremony. Quickly coming to you, Raymond Vickery, there have been strong statements that have been made by the incoming president, Donald Trump, talking about tariffs, talking about immigration, but most importantly, yesterday he once again reiterated that he is going to declassify the John F. Kennedy files. What do you have to say about it?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks very much for having me. I think it is a great day for America. We're having a peaceful transfer of power. And unlike 4 years ago when Donald Trump refused to participate in the transfer of power and actually tried to prevent it, it's going forward in a peaceful and positive manner. I do think that there are concerns on the international economic scene. Donald Trump is very much in love with tariffs, both in terms of raising funds. He's talked about Bureau of External Revenue. He's also using tariffs as a bludgeon to try to get what he feels is his way from both friends and foes alike. I think in the U.S. India relations, he has said repeatedly that India is an abuser of tariffs. So you can expect some action there, and has said it's going to be 10 to 20% tariffs on Indian goods and indeed around the world. Now, whether or not this goes forward in exactly that form is hard to say. But the reality is that the geopolitical and the economic are not two separate worlds, and those go hand in hand. So there's going to be need to work with India, not only on tariffs and economic matters there, but on energy. We've never realized the fruits of the U.S. India civil nuclear deal, which I worked very hard on. I hope that'll be on the table. India is now facing some sort of oil shock, and that's going to have to be worked through too. So it's a very unsettled time in terms of international economic relations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, those beautiful visuals. There's the band playing in the background, and there are as more and more dignitaries now arriving, which is some of the former presidents have also arrived, which is then an indication that J.D. Vance, the incoming vice president, and the incoming President Donald Trump, along with his wife, are going to shortly arrive. That's Ivanka, Donald Trump's daughter, and she is accompanied by her husband, of course, Jared Kushner, who are now awaiting eagerly as their father arrives at Rotunda to take oath, to commence with the oath-taking ceremony in the Capitol premises. Coming back to you, Yossi Kupavasa, what do you look forward to in Trump presidency 2.0, especially when it comes to the long-standing conflict between Israel and Hamas?
Well, I think that Trump is committed to making sure that Hamas will not be ruling the Gaza Strip in the future. And that's something that we have in common, and I think we are going to cooperate in that. But there's a wide array of issues on which we agree, and we are going to cooperate with President Trump. And first and foremost amongst that is the Iranian threat. We are going to cooperate in making sure that Iran doesn't have the capability to produce nuclear weapons. That is something that is common, and I believe that one of the first steps of President Trump will be to put back the maximum pressure on Iran. This is going to have an impact also on Hamas, because it's going to be more difficult for Hamas to get the money and the other kinds of support they get from Iran. And on top of that, there's going to be a big issue of cooperation that also relates to all these other issues. And this is the effort to promote normalization of relations between us and Saudi Arabia. And that is going to be something more delicate. We are all interested in seeing it happen, but there's a question of the price, how much we are going to be charged for having normal relations with Saudi Arabia. We are ready to move forward, but not pay the entire price that might be demanded from us.
Right, absolutely. Coming back to you, Ambassador Kapoor, here we're talking about, obviously the front and center, the family members have finally arrived. The children are over here. Ivanka is over here. Donald Trump Jr. has just, shown a thumbs up to the cameras while he awaits his father's arrival. And also Ivanka played, a very important role in Trump 1.0. She was given those important roles to fulfill in the White House, in his cabinet. Donald Trump Jr. has been campaigning for his father during his campaigning in the first term, before his first term, and even now. But they have not been given any official titles per se this time around when Trump was picking his cabinet.
The House of Representatives.
Yes, you're right, in the sense that Ivanka and Jared have sort of been playing a very low-key role. they have not come forward. There are no expectations that they will be joining the current administration. And I think whatever I've heard from my friends in Washington, D.C., this transition team, which has been put together, has been working in a very professional way. They are looking at all the candidates through different lenses as compared to the last time. And they've been working very hard to select people who would be able to, sort of not only be loyal to Trump, but perhaps behave more professionally as compared to the last time, where there would be a lot of fights which would keep on breaking out. We kept on hearing a lot of rumors. So this time around, the way it's been going so far seems to be, as if some lessons have been learned from the earlier version, and that there may be a little more professionalism and not, sink into personal sort of differences between different players. So let's see how it happens. And even on the India front, I think the U.S. India relations will move positively much faster this time, though there will be, of course, as some of the other speakers have said, that there will be some areas where there will be differences, but lots of areas where there will be
potential for both the countries to grow in trade, in diplomacy, in as we talk about the civil nuclear deal that at this point of time needs to move ahead, stronger ties to be forged. Coming back to you, Professor Mahajan, we're talking about how there have been appointments that have been made, but some crucial ones where the Trump's Middle East advisor, Trump's ambassador to the Middle East, he picked the father-in-law of Ivanka to Tiffany, father-in-law of Tiffany, to take that charge of ambassador to the Middle East. Now, that's an important position right there. Talking about the Middle East crisis, Biden and Trump both taking credit for the war at this point of time that seems to have dissipated. The ceasefire deal at this point of time has been negotiated. Do you think this is more so because Trump was just about to come to power? He's taking oath today because the war continued for a year and a half. Little short than a year, and Biden perhaps has not been able to successfully intervene and figure out a solution over here.
I'm sorry. Can you? Your sound is coming very muffled.
Okay.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Professor Mahajan, do you think when it comes to the Middle East crisis, Trump has been playing a major role even before he became president, and Biden has been still not been able to negotiate a deal, happening just 2 days before the Trump inauguration ceremony taking place?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can only guess what you asked, because somehow the sound is coming very muffled. So I'm afraid I cannot answer because I don't know the question exactly. Can you give me a hint on?
Okay, we'll try to figure that audio connection with you, Professor Mahajan. But coming back to you, Raymond Vickery, who do you credit the Middle East crisis, the mitigation of this war that, as we see, the ceasefire deal has happened? What was the difference in the deal, the conditions that were fulfilled this time around versus the negotiations that had been going on for days and weeks and months together, but there was no resolution in sight?
Well, thanks for raising that very important question. Looking for positive aspects in terms of the transition, I think that what has happened so far in Gaza is a positive, with the peace deal, the temporary deal at least, is positive because there has been working together of the Biden administration officials who've been at this for many, many months with the incoming representatives of the Trump administration. I think that there is enough credit to go around for both sides on that. That's a good sign. There are other good signs internationally. The Quad ministers are supposed to meet tomorrow. So India, U.S., Japan, Australia, foreign ministers will talk about China. There is a move afoot to try to have an early meeting between Xi and Trump. Hopefully, those will move in the direction of peace and stability. On the question of what happens in Ukraine, that is very much to be seen. President Trump has said that he was going to end it on day one, even before he was inaugurated. That hasn't happened, of course, like many other promises. But I think on the peace side, that's an inflection point that hopefully will be seized on.
Okay, all right. I'm going to come back to Mr. Yossi here about, do you think Trump has been more influential in being able to negotiate the deal in the Middle East crisis? Why do you think, again the same question, why do you think it took so long for the deal to be negotiated? And finally, that it's 2 days before Trump's inauguration that we see that there's been a ceasefire and an exchange deal has been figured out eventually.
Well, I think first of all, he was threatening that all hell was going to open on Hamas if they don't show more flexibility and accept the deals. And they really were worried about what does he mean, and didn't want to experience this hell coming against them. So this helped, and Biden was working hard, but didn't threaten anybody. And anyhow, Biden was on his way out, and Trump is on his way in, So they had to take him into account, building some credibility with him for the future. They need him, and for the reconstruction effort and so on. So it's, I think this helped bring about the deal.
Okay.
And on top of that, I think that Trump enjoys a very unique situation compared with, you spoke about Trump 2.0. It's very much different than Trump 1.0. 1.0 was fighting against everybody in the international community. And the Europeans were against him, and everybody was against cooperating with him, and everybody was trying to make him fail. This time around, it's just the opposite. Everybody understands that he has the power in the United States and that they have to cooperate. And this is a totally new situation, also with a new team. And I think that he has much more chances to succeed than Trump 1.0.
Okay, all right. So visuals on your screen, and there you have Melania Trump, who is going to be the incoming First Lady of United States of America, who is also arrived. We see the Second Lady, the incoming Second Lady, Usha Vance, has also been escorted inside the rotunda at the U.S. Capitol. And coming back to you, Professor Mahajan, a situation such as this, where there is these protectionist policies that have been imposed by President Trump even before the time that even during the time that he was campaigning, how are his policies going to align with India when it comes to stronger trade ties between both countries?
One thing I'll say right away is that President Trump is somewhat unorthodox in the sense that some of the positions he has taken are unusual, and therefore what will happen is somewhat unpredictable because he can change his positions rather quickly. But nevertheless, on trade, he is looking inwards. He wants to reduce the trade deficit. And again, one of the speakers said tariffs have been a threat. Not just for other countries, but for neighbors like Mexico and Canada. In the context of India, Trump has repeated multiple times that India has a $40 billion trade deficit with the United States. And it is unclear what the administration will do in the context of India. Are they going to impose the tariffs on China? Letting India go? In that case, it will be good for India because we'll get some spillover effect. On the other hand, Trump can impose tariffs on India as well because he thinks that the surplus which India has is not because of its competitive advantage, but instead because of tariffs and government protection. So the question then will be on what goods will the tariff be imposed? Will it be selective or will it be across the board?
Okay.
So the results really are quite unclear at this point as to what stance will be taken. But clearly, trade is one of the things which will impact India and U.S. relations.
Absolutely,
Along
yeah,
with,
absolutely.
of course,
Those are
issue
important
of
points. Negotiations that will have to be had. Difficult questions will have to be answered, and difficult questions, it will be a point where